Here comes a 27-year-old former NBA player in the prime of his athletic career, getting cut twice in 73, 74 in the ABA, NBA. 3 years of complete frustration. Hey, man, this is where I am. Italy don't want you. The Bullets don't want you. The Nets don't want you. The talent wasn't great, especially where I came from, the NBA. I went to Switzerland, and somebody was going to pay for my frustration. I was pissed, broke, divorced. I'm not listening to anybody around here tell me how to play. I'm going to show them some shit they ain't never seen before in this joint.
And you are in Australia right now.
You're talking NBA basketball. You're talking great teams. You're talking great individual players.
Takes it off, and there's number 23, and of course Johnny goes nuts.
So I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now.
I just tried to go out there and play my game.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Adam. I don't like anybody. I'm not a people person.
Strand, you made the pass. Yes. Christian, can you catch the ball? Yes.
All the stars were aligned and all the muscles fired at the right time, and I was able to get off the ground and throw one down.
I was saving that as a surprise for you.
And now, introducing your host for In All Airness, Adam Ryan.
Welcome to episode 138. Thanks for joining me. Today, part 2 of my extended conversation with Rich Rinaldi. We now dive deep into Rich's pro career, the NBA, ABA, and his 5+ years of being a star in Europe. Part 1 concluded with Rich's classic comment, "Welcome to the world of dirtbags," re his experiences of an underhanded approach from the ABA's Pittsburgh Condors ahead of the 1971 ABA draft. Toward the end of the show, I thank a listener who sent a motivating text message via the link in my show notes. A quick heads up, Rich does drop the occasional expletive in this chat. In context with the topic, Mr. Rinaldi is a passionate man and a great storyteller. Show notes for this episode and access to a huge archive of past episodes are available at inallairness.com. Now, onto the show. In mid-March of that year, you were the Miami Floridians' 5th round selection in the 71 ABA draft, and then your rights were then sold, I think, to the Pittsburgh Condors.
Yeah.
We'll get to the NBA draft in a minute, but is there anything further from that initial ABA interaction that you'd like to touch on?
Word got back to me at the ABA February draft, whatever that was, that this guy stood up in front of the masses and said, "Be careful of Rinaldi. He wants a small fortune." This is the story that got back to me. I'm 21 years old, man. I just want to play basketball. I said no to the dude. I don't like to say no, but no. You know, this is a Jesuit institution of higher learning, morals, values, all these things that you're teaching us in school. Man, get out of here with that. And I'm not saying I'm a saint by any means, but no. The guy got up and said, "Rinaldi wants a small fortune." 5th round, I was the second pick of the Floridians. To be real about that, they played a doubleheader for the ABA in Madison Square Garden. And Rick Barry was playing. They invited me to the after party. Maybe I'm shallow, but I'm telling you the truth. They had these twin ball girls like a recruiting tool. I said no again. Then I go to the cafeteria at St. Peter's a few days later. "Oh, hey, Richie, look, you got traded to the Pittsburgh Condors for Bill Smith from Syracuse University, the 6'11" center." I said, "I did? Oh, the Condors are back in play, huh? They're out to ruin my life, aren't they?"
These stories are great. You were selected by the Baltimore Bullets with the 43rd overall pick in the 1971 NBA draft. It was the 8th pick of the 3rd round. As a New York native, where were you on the day and how did you learn of that NBA selection?
You asked some great questions, but I have the answers.
I'm pleased to hear that.
I was in Jersey City. My car was fixed. The window was fixed. And the day of the draft, there was a tournament in Poughkeepsie. It was a rather famous tournament, local tournament throughout the area. And I was playing on a team. I was going to make $200 that night. which was like, yes, sir, I'd sure like to get $200. So I drive up to my mom's house in Poughkeepsie. I spend a day there, and the phone rings, and it's like, 11 o'clock in the morning. And it's a fella named Leonard Lewin from the New York Post, legendary writer. He said, hey, Richie, this is Lenny Lewin from the Post. What do you think? I said, what do I think? What happened? Tell me, and then I'll let you know. He goes, well, you were the third-round pick of the Bullets. And I said, well, who was first? Oh, a 6'9" guy, Stan Love out of Oregon, Kevin Love's dad. Stan was the number 9 pick overall. I said, well, who was the second-round pick? Oh, they didn't have any? Oh, my God, I'm the first guard. This is great. And so I said something like, wow. And that's what the headline was, Rinaldi, wow. Wow was a big term way back then during the marijuana days and the Vietnam and all that. And then the Bullets started calling, and there was no call waiting back then. The Bullet family was calling. Here I am at my mom's house. Nobody walked me up to a stage or anything and put a hat on my head or nothing like that. But it was a big, big, big day. I talked to Bob Ferry. I talked to Gene Shue. I talked to Jerry Sachs. And I finally got a 1-year guarantee contract. And I was thrilled about it. Stan Love got all the money, big money. It's the way it goes. No complaints. All been written.
Not even 2 weeks after you were drafted to the NBA, you led all scorers with 29 points in a YMCA senior tournament title game. Do you remember these tournaments that occurred not too long after becoming a pro?
Yes, Adam. That tournament was played in Binghamton, New York, another somewhat famous YMCA tournament. There were many tournaments in which I participated in once my college eligibility was done. I was a marked man because all these other players wanted to show up a pro. I didn't sign a professional contract until late May because there was battles litigating, and I just played against these guys like I would in an open gym. Okay, you want my ass? Well, come and get it because I got something for all of you. That's how I thought, and that's how it was. There was a North-South All-Star game as well, Erie, Pennsylvania.
You got MVP honors. It was the 7th annual North-South All-Star Classic, and you had a stat line of 27 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists. So another stellar effort there, Rich.
There were a few players that could have got MVP. Marvin Roberts, the stats were really good. But I think the difference was the last 2 or 3 minutes, I made a couple plays and passes and stuff that helped win the game. It was a close game. And I remember Randy Smith being on my team, and we bumped heads a couple times. And Willie Sojourner was on the other team. You got MVP only because. I said, man, Willie, try winning the game. They might think about you for MVP. So just keep slugging that bottle or whatever it is. I'll see you later. Because there was a big party afterwards.
You mentioned that you signed in late May of 1971 with the Bullets. Here's a tidbit from my research that I have to ask you about. On that day, May 27, you flew from Newark to Baltimore and back to sign that no-cut contract. And you've got a specific memory relating to the iconic sports reporter Howard Cosell.
Well, my whole life being a New Yorker, I'm from Poughkeepsie. I guess I'm not a New Yorker, but or a Brooklynite or Queens or any of the boroughs. Poughkeepsie, as you said, initially is 80 miles up the road. Howard Cosell at 5:25 p.m., and this is for all the old heads out there that can remember this. He had a little 5-minute show, probably 2 minutes was advertisement, and it was called Speaking of Sports. This is Howard Cosell speaking of sports. Mm-hmm. Today in the NBA, the Baltimore Bullets signed Rich Rinaldi, and I'm like going, wow. That was like an epiphany. Howard Cosell mentioned my name. 2 months before that, the Bullets played the Knicks in the playoffs in Madison Square Garden, and the Bullets brought me in to schmooze and shake hands, and this is our draft pick and all that. And we were 2 rows behind the Bullet bench. I was getting looks from the guys going, that little shit's, he wants my job next year. And Howard Cosell was to my left, and his trench coat was in the seat between Howard and myself. I guess he had a seat for his trench coat too, right? Howard Cosell. And I can remember Willis Reed didn't have a good game, and he's sitting there doing commentary. He said, Willis Reed, he's playing like a drugged man. What is wrong with him tonight? You know, he kept going. I said, man, shut up. Leave the guy alone. He had one bad pass. He remembered that I sat next to him, and 2 months later he said my name. That was a big deal. I mean, all these big deals are coming out. I'm just trying to keep a level head about it. Couldn't wait till I got back on the court again. I didn't want to talk like I'm doing now. This is a talk show. It's a podcast. You and I.
I read that as a high school and college student, you attended a few of the famous Maurice Stokes Memorial basketball games. Before we actually discuss your appearances as a player in those said games, what do you remember about watching them in your formative years of basketball?
I would go there because it was about an hour and 15 minutes from Poughkeepsie, Monticello, Fallsburg, West. What do you remember? You remember Will Chamberlain. You remember Kareem. I remember the first game they played against each other, indoors, because it was raining, I believe, outside. You can hardly move. And I was under the basket. Little 20-year-old Wilt got the ball, first possession, and he just backed down and bang, he just threw it right through, like, welcome to the league, kid. Later on, a few possessions more, Kareem got him. I'm going, damn, look at this. Look at this.
You were asked to take part in the 1971 event. It was ahead of your rookie debut with Baltimore. How wild was it to know that you would be playing in that game, and how do you prepare for something like that?
The stories I have leading up to that from the Maurice Stokes game was Wilt did everything he could to play in the game. And he even chartered a plane because there were delays and this and that and next thing. And he got out of the cab in Tower. And he asked me and my couple friends, he goes, hey, man, what's going on? I said, oh, the game's over. He said, oh, fuck. And I went, whoa, that was Wilt, man. That's Wilt. Another time, Muhammad Ali got out of a car. And I went, damn, he's big. He's tall as I am. He was 6'3". When you saw him and you saw Wilt, it was like, man, this is the big leagues. So I played the first game, and I'm on Wilt's team. I'm on Clyde Frazier's team. I'm on Billy Cunningham's team. Stan Love was on the team. Satch Sanders, I believe, was on the team. Kevin Lockery, I had enough of him. Red Auerbach was coaching the other team. I guess I had a couple baskets and maybe a free throw or two. Don't embarrass me with my free throws, because if you do, I'll say the wind was blowing that night outdoors.
I won't mention your free throw line on that game.
No, it wasn't that bad again.
You did have 5 points in the game.
I have 5.
Al Addles was your coach?
It was Al Addles, yeah.
I read that more than 2,500 people were watching the game. You sent through some photos ahead of our chat today. It just looks almost otherworldly. How do you describe those games for people who have never seen photos or even brief footage that does exist?
It was so much hype. Wilt had an aura about him that just dominated the game. Everyone else was just trying to play ball and do this and do that. You can think all you want. You weren't getting by him. He was the fastest guy on the court. Wilt won every sprint drill there was when he wanted to. What is it like, 2,000 people? I can describe it best, Adam, as the atmosphere was festive. It wasn't a party, but the atmosphere was very festive, and it was an event. All for a good cause. It was all for Maurice Stokes, another guy from St. Francis of Loretto, Pennsylvania. So there's a hell of a history there with that school with Kevin Porter and Van Leer. Larry Lewis, I don't think he played in the pros. I'm trying to think of somebody else from that school. Maurice Stokes was going to be one of the greatest ever until he had that tragic accident that confined him to a wheelchair the rest of his life. But Wilt did everything he could. Jack Twyman and all these pros donated their time to benefit. I still have the programs from that and autographs. Somebody said, hey, sign your name. I said, Rich Rinaldi. Then I see it all these years later, and I say, Earl Monroe, Red Auerbach, like Dave Cowens. Like, what? It was a big thrill. It didn't last long, but it was a big thrill.
It's awesome to hear you just talk about this all these years later. The Bullets training camp opened in September of 71, and per the Baltimore Sun, there's 13 players that were fighting to make the 12-man opening night roster. The first-round pick, as you mentioned, Stan Love, was obviously a shoo-in, no pun intended, on Coach Gene Shue. But what do you recall of your battle to earn that roster spot there, Rich?
Here's my pro career in a nutshell. I made a decision not to go to the ABA, not to go to Italy. I said, let me try. If I'm going to go down, let me go down swinging against the best, right? And that's the NBA. There was Earl Monroe, Freddie Carter, Kevin Lockery, Eddie Miles, who I mentioned earlier that used to just pound the shit out of me, and Gary Zeller, who was on the team the year before. So the first day of camp, we're in Fort Meade, Maryland, September of 71. And there's a kid out there shooting around. And I said, wait a minute, man, who's this? This wasn't part of the program. And it's Phil Chenier. And I said, who's Phil Chenier? We drafted him in this hardship draft. And it was the first year. There were 17 teams in the league. 5 teams took a player in the hardship. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Bob Ferry and the Bullets took Phil Chenier, a guard. And here I was coming into the league, figuring I get 8, 10, 12 minutes a game, get my feet wet, give a guy a break at the end of a quarter and go out and just play, learn the ropes. And here's Phil Chenier. And I said, damn, this kid is really good. And in fact, no pro likes to admit that anybody's better than they are, but Phil was better than I was. I said, man, this isn't fair, but here I'm learning these life hard lessons real quick as I grow older. Gene Shue had a rotation of 7, 8 guys. He wasn't going to play too many rookies. All of a sudden, I was the 3rd rookie. I was the 2nd rookie until first day training camp. I was done. To add insult to injury, and again, this is for all them players back in the day and all the historians, and this was the most humbling and degrading thing ever in my life. If you were not over the foul limit, you're allowed 4 fouls a quarter. And back then, you would shoot 1 free throw if you were not over the limit on a common foul. So I would go in the game for 3 seconds and foul a guy on purpose and go sit back on the bench. Mm. I used to sit on the bench and root that we would go over the limit every quarter. Please, I don't want to go in and give a foul on purpose and then go sit on the bench. It was devastating. My rookie year, that's what I did. And in March, he gave us some time after we clinched the Central Division. He started me. I played 2 quarters each game, 24 minutes. He realized it was real fun to play instead of going and give a foul, man. And they drafted Chenier. And this all goes back to Italy. If I had known Chenier was going to be there in the first day of camp, I'd have been drinking espressos 10 times a day with my little bag under my arm, walking around and being the prototypical Italian. I would have spent the rest of my life there. But here I am now. My life's good. I'm still alive, and I got a good wife, kids, grandkids, great-grandkids. So it all leads back to this, Adam. Plus, I'm talking to someone from Australia, which I don't think I've ever done, a basketball historian junkie, and it's great. You remembered me.
I'm pleased to hear that. I love the stories. Phil Chenier, multiple All-Star, NBA champion, All-NBA. Very tough to see him turn up on that first day of camp. It makes it very difficult. I note that you played 42 games in your rookie season. The Bullets were 38 and 44, and you bowed out to the New York Knicks in that postseason. You had a contender for the quote of the year I've come across. It was, my career high in warm-ups is 81 points. Oh, which I thought was very good. I actually read that you arrived at the Civic Center sometimes hours before games would happen, and you challenged your coach, Gene Shue, to games of one-on-one. How intense were those contests?
It wasn't hours before to play him. It was after a practice in this little dive joint, and it was awful. Just a gym, but that's where we practiced for the most part my rookie year. Practice got done one day. I'm shooting around and being a good 12th man. He said, Rich Rinaldi, I want a piece of you. I looked at him, I said, what do you mean, Gene? You okay? What's wrong with you? He's a 40-year-old man, right? He goes, no, you and I are going to play one-on-one. I said, Gene, let me ask you one question. Am I supposed to let you win? Like, you have fucking embarrassed me enough giving foul. I'm going to pound the shit out of you, old man. I don't care if you were an all-star or what you did in your life and, how good you were and you had a great career. You sure you want to play me? Yeah, I beat him. I lost enough face that year giving fouls, and now I'm going to let a 40-year-old beat me? That's what was going on with Gene Shue. But the quote of the year, and I can't find it, and you're the historian, from the Baltimore Evening News, and Mike Janofsky was the writer, might have been Alan Goldstein in The Sun. He was beat writer for The Sun. It's a daytime paper back then. I had pretty good self-deprecating humor, and I was trying to take all this humility in stride because it was a first for me. I said, Gene, after a win, he comes around in the locker room and he says, hey, Wes Unseld, way to rebound. Elvin Hayes, nice turnaround jump shot. Or Archie Clark, way to lead the team. I said, what's he going to say when he comes to me? Like, way to clap? Something like that. So that made Sports Illustrated, they said it. That used to be a big thing in a magazine when it came out. I said, what's he going to do? Tell me, way to clap? Way to be a cheerleader? Like today, these guys stand up after every basket on the bench. Drives me nuts. Sit down, please.
That's tickled my fancy. That's very good. In the 1973 season, your Bullets were 52-30 and then exited the playoffs to the eventual NBA champs, the New York Knicks. Now, you played in 33 games, and per Basketball Reference, your top scoring games took place between October and December of 1972, and that includes a career-high 26 points on October the 10th, which was the season opener in a win versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. What springs to mind about that performance, Rich? You were 12 of 19 from the field.
That's what I shot from the foul line with St. Peter's.
True. I didn't mention your free throws. You were 2 of 3 from the line.
I missed one, huh? I was starting that year because Archie Clark, the all-star guard, was holding out. He wanted more money, especially when he found out how much Stan Love was making, the rookie. Archie didn't go for that. And he wanted Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld kind of money, because he was an all-star too, so he held out. So I had an opportunity. I had a good exhibition season. I had 24 against Kentucky, the game before that opening night win in Cleveland. Things were going really good. The schedule was difficult. We were clinging around 500, and it got to be December. I got sick as a dog. I had this thing called the London flu, and Kevin Porter came in, and they kept playing him after that. He went on to have a great career. I started the first 26 games, and you say I played 33 games. So I only got in 7 more games, and the season was over. They call these things exit interviews today. Gene brought me into his office. He said, Rich Rinaldi, we're thinking of trading you. We have a deal, you and Dave Stallworth, for John Block, Kansas City, Omaha. I said, Gene, man, let's do it. Get me out of here, please. What happened was he ended up going to sign with the Sixers, and Casey Jones and Bernie Bickerstaff came in. 73-74 season, I broke my elbow during exhibition season and came back. I shot 3 for 22 with a broken elbow because I knew if I'm going to go down, I'm going down shooting. I shouldn't have been playing, but there was no injured list back then or any of that. So that was it.
Well, per Basketball Reference, you're one of only 75 players, speaking of the number 75, your birthday today, to have been teammates with Wes Unseld.
Oh.
How did it feel to be on the receiving end of some of his legendary outlet passes?
It was my game. I would score when the Bullets gave me some minutes. He would get the ball out to me. He said, Rico, just go there. And I said, sure, I'll be right there and I'll do the rest. Even in a set offense, we had this play, it was called the 4 play, where Chenier and I were starting and he'd go one way and I'd use Wes's pick and my man disappeared into oblivion, never to be seen or heard from again. And I'm wide open for my pop shot. It was great playing with Wes. I learned a lot from Wes Unseld to be a professional, and he was a quiet leader. It was just a great deal until it wasn't.
You played with some great basketball names on the Bullets, and you've mentioned a majority of them already. You got Fred Mad Dog Carter, Phil Chenier, Archie Clark. You mentioned Alvin Hayes briefly. You've got Gus Johnson, Kevin Lockery, who it seems like you may not be as big a fan of, and Mike Reardon, just to name a handful.
One thing, if you go see the Bullets play and you look up at their retired number, and if Phil just got his number retired, he was the 5th, I can say, for whatever it's worth, I was a teammate of all 5 guys who had their number retired up there. There's not a lot of minutes left for a dude like me. I didn't want my number retired. I just wanted 8 to 12 minutes a game. There's Phil, Earl Monroe, Honeycomb Johnson, Wes Unseld, and Alvin Hayes. They're the 5 numbers retired.
It's a short list of great players.
Impressive lineup.
You played in 7 games for the Capital Bullets, as they were renamed prior to the 74 season, and November 11th of 73 was your final NBA game. Did you know at the time that was the end of your NBA career there, Rich, if you don't mind my asking?
No, you can ask. I broke my elbow in an exhibition game against the Nets, ABA Nets, at the Westchester County Center in White Plains, New York. I took a shot at the end of the 3rd quarter, about a 45-foot heave. Billy Paultz, he stood there. I put everything I had into it. It was like almost a semi-dart. I got on his shoulder and he just lifted me up and I fell right on my elbow. That basically was the end of me. I went back in the game like a knucklehead, but it was busted. And I came back too early because I knew the chopping block was coming. They were going to carry one less guard because Unseld was hurt. So they brought in Walt Wesley and Manny Leaks, 2 big guys. They doubled up Mike Reardon in the backcourt from small forward. And the phone rang. That was the end of it. Bob Ferry called me, and it was during Monday Night Football, and we had company on top of it, and we just hung the curtains up. We moved to Crofton, Maryland, outside of Annapolis by the Capitol Center, and waved goodbye to the company. In the morning, I didn't say anything. I told my then wife, I said, let's go, we're out. Got cut last night. That was that.
Wow.
And Kevin Lockery called me. Oh, Rich, he's talking about the ABA. He says, if you clear waivers in the NBA, the ABA, the Nets, we're supposed to be winning here with all these superstars we have, but we're not winning. Our guards suck. The league sucked. Everything sucked, right? And I said, damn, this is a great opportunity. They had lost 9 in a row, I think. I said, man, let me get up there. The minute I got there, they won 9 in a row, 16 out of 17. and I got cut. And they brought back a kid named Jim O'Brien, who was getting paid to be home. So the owner of the team, Roy Bowe, said, hey, Kevin, what are you doing? Can't pay Rinaldi and O'Brien, so bring O'Brien back and let him sit because we're paying him. We don't need to pay 2 guys. And that was the end of that.
That's a tough one to swallow.
Yeah, it's all part of growing up.
Less than 3 weeks later is when you made the ABA debut with the New York Nets. That seemed to run its race. And I believe that you tried out with the Memphis TAMS. TAMS is an acronym for Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi.
It wasn't my agent. I had somebody called Bob Bass who was running that team. I said, look, man, I'll come down if you can guarantee me that Larry Finch doesn't have a no-cut contract, because he was the local dude, right, for Memphis. A funny story was Roger Brown was on the team, and we roomed this one night. He comes in, he's got a gun. I said, hey, Roger. Oh, no, Rich, I'm a sheriff. I got a licensed guy. I said, I got to sleep with you, man, in this room tonight with a gun. He said, no, it's good. So anyway, we had this blue-red game or something. I did really good. And the next morning, phone rings, and Roger goes, Rich, Bass wants to talk to you. And that was it. Packed my shit up and left Memphis. Tough business.
Absolutely. You mentioned briefly there your nickname, Rico. See if we can get that added to Basketball Reference on your player page.
Yeah, the name stuck like glue my rookie year. The number 4 pick in the 69 draft was Terry Driscoll, who played at Boston College, the MVP of that NIT. And I think he was the only one ever to be MVP where the team lost. Temple won it. Terry couldn't agree on money with the Pistons, so he went to Italy. He came back, and we were teammates. We were on the Bullets together. I was number 33. He was number 35. And we both rode the bench together. We sat there for most of the season. He just started calling me Rico, and Unseld and Hayes, everyone. I became Rico, even though it means Henry in Italian, and Riccardo means Richard. But who am I to say anything, man? I was just there. I wanted to play basketball.
It stuck.
It stuck.
At this point, you're around 26 years of age. Your career is at the crossroads as far as the American game goes. I read that you actually started substitute teaching while still wanting to play basketball, clearly. I read that your agent secured a contract for you to play overseas in your motherland of Italy. However, there'd be problems with the documentation. Before we discuss your life in Europe, what would students of Mr. Rich Rinaldi have learnt in the time as a substitute teacher from you?
I showed them some card tricks. Taught them how to play dodgeball.
So you're mostly physical education?
One was physical education. Today it's too violent for this generation to play dodgeball. Yeah, God, don't get me started. But you did get me started.
I did.
If the teacher for whom I was subbing left the assignment, I would have him do the assignment.
Did you enjoy it?
No, I didn't enjoy it, man. I should have been somewhere else. I made the best of it because I signed up for it and got paid $40 a day, whatever it was back 50 years ago. I was responsible and I was present and I did the best I could.
I did a Google Images search for your name and I came across a great photo. You're in the bottom right, circa summer 1976. You were on a tour with players, including none other than Robert Parrish, future Hall of Famer. What can you tell us about that particular tour where you were over in Europe just after the 1976 NBA draft?
Well, I was looking for a job, and Richard Tenure ran these tours with American college players, free agents, what have you. Robert Parrish happened to be on the team. He was holding out. He was the 8th pick in the draft by Golden State that summer, and they didn't come to terms. So I think he and his agent were using that as a bargaining chip to get Golden State to up the ante. We had a pretty good team. We were really good. And then all of a sudden, Robert Parrish shows up, and we played 5 tournaments, 3 games each tournament. And it's very simple mathematics. We were 15-0. We toured southern Italy, mostly Sicily. Parrish was fun in the sense that he knew I was a little flaky maybe on the court. I remember practicing one time. I was on one team, we were scrimmaging, and we were in Varese, Italy, practicing. I was taking the ball to the basket. He was under the basket. And I kept going. He's looking at me, what's this kid doing? He must be out of his mind. So I kept going, and I could get up in those days. And I kept going, and he's going to actually try this. I just went up, and with my left hand, I threw a pass to the guy in the corner. And I looked, and he came down. I smiled at him. I said, I ain't that crazy, Robert. You know, that's what I remember about that tournament, other than going 15-0. And I haven't seen him since. And I thought my job of traveling around, and the Celtics were one of the teams I oversaw as a career counselor for a number of years. I thought I'd run into him. He's one guy I would have liked to jog his memory, go back to 76. That's my story with Robert Parrish. Oh, and I'll say this story. These games maybe like 9:30 at night, and they were outdoors in Sicily. And after the game, it might be 11:30, and we go out for a pizza, eating outside at the tables. And there were these shady dudes walking around, those scars on their face, little dudes, Sicilians, if you will. And they were casing us. The owner came up to us before we left. He said, "Don't come back here tomorrow." I said, "Why? Don't you like our business? What's wrong?" He said, No, that's not it. He said, "You saw those guys that were walking around before. They plan on taking some of your money and watches and whatever other belongings you have. Be ready to be held at gunpoint."
Jeez.
Yeah, we didn't go back.
Understandably.
We didn't go back. I have this memory for these type of things. I enjoyed those 3 weeks with Robert Parrish being a teammate. There were some other good players on that team. Frank Alasia from St. John's, Randy Meister out of Penn State, who ended up being my roommate, became the European Cup player in 76 for Mobile Girgi, the team that I went to as an Italian-American. He had signed his contract after that tournament. And I signed mine, too, after that tournament. Let me just finish with Bill Campion. He was there. Campion was from Manhattan. I remember we were in a city called Cefalù in Sicily, right on the ocean. It was a beautiful day. My life was turning around. It was getting better. I was leaving all the bad that happened behind and signed the contract. Life is good. Went home and then came back to Italy in August. Tournaments were in July. Went home for a little while, gathered my stuff, and came back. Played the preseason. Then I found out I couldn't play. So then I went to Switzerland.
In September of 76, you commenced the new chapter in your life where you moved to Italy before moving to Switzerland, where you played another 5 seasons. Everything I've read suggests that you were a scoring machine in Europe. Can you please talk us through setting up a new life for yourself and the extension of your basketball career?
This is another woe is me story, this Italian thing. My agent secured a deal with a team that was one of the best teams in Europe, in Varese, Italy, that has 2 Hall of Famers now in Springfield. Sandro Gamba, the coach, and Dino Minighin, the pivot, the center. And that team had some really solid Italians, and a point guard was one of the top 3 to 5 point guards I've ever played with. Deceptively great. And Bob Morse from Penn, 1972. They were really, really good with Corky Calhoun. And Bob Morse, who was drafted by Buffalo, became a career European Italian player that is legendary over there. Very bright guy. Best shooter I've seen. Dude never missed. So I got him the ball. I talked about an underrated point guard. His name is Aldo Ossola. He was tremendous. If you looked at him, you would go, what are you doing out here? He had decent size at 6'2" at least. And he was savvy. Aldo Ossola, who I feel should get some consideration for the Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts, as an international player. That's how strongly I feel about him as a player. That team, I played during the exhibition season. We had problems with my documents, so all eyes were on this team. All the Italian lawyers from Bologna and Milan and Naples and everywhere in between. All of a sudden, here comes a 27-year-old former NBA player in the prime of his athletic career, hooking up with this team. And the other team didn't like it. If I had gone to some little other team, nobody would have ever cared because there were half Irish, half Italian, half German, half Italian. And here I am, full-blooded, all 4 of my grandparents on the boat, Shelter Island, legal immigrants. Out of 20 parameters, they found one. My father was born September 3rd of 1915. My grandfather, his father, came to this country in the late 1800s. And on April 23rd, 1915, my grandfather renounced his Italian citizenship while my grandmother, my father's mother, was pregnant. So on September 3rd, my father was born unto an American and not an Italian. And they held that against me. The team I was on was too scared to chance it. So after getting cut twice in 73, 74 in the ABA, NBA, Memphis, a failure. My personal life went down the drain, all due to my negligence. I was out of shape, tried for Italy. Another year and couldn't do it. So now you got 3 years of complete frustration, and now your whole life is going, yeah, I'm going to play Italian, I'm going to play basketball, prime of my life. So we went to Buenos Aires and Montevideo, Uruguay, and played in this Copa Jones. I was just playing, man. I was just playing. It was a team where I could be happy scoring 15, 17, 5 rebounds, and 7, 8 assists, where I didn't have to score 50 like I did in Switzerland. So I was on this team that was very talented. So we come back from Argentina in October, and we did pretty good. Played Real Madrid, and team from Africa, University of Missouri, Brazilian team. It was really cool. I'm broadening my horizons internationally now. So I get back to the hotel the next day, wake up after the long trip, and I don't speak Italian or read Italian in 1976. And I look at the paper and I see this little headline, Rinaldi, addio. Addio. Everybody knows what addio means, I think.
Adios.
Yeah, addio in Italian. So I call up Bobby Morse, who's fluent in Italian, and I'm spelling words. He said, Rico, nobody told you? He said, don't move. So 10 minutes later, he comes over to the hotel where I'm at, and he goes, you can't play. I said, man, just getting divorced, and I got to go back home. So one guy on the team, he was on the national team, and I was going to take his minutes. I was going to start instead of him. He said, no, this isn't fair. Let's go to the office. We went to the general manager's office, and we sat there, and he said, look, he said, we want to keep you here for the season. You're not going to get your contract. We'll give you, let's say, $1,000 a month. We'll keep you with the car. We'll keep you with the apartment. We'll keep you with the 2 meals a day. And we want you to practice against the team during the season, which will make the first team better, and you'll be on the second team at practice. And we'll see what we can do with your documents by then. So I go, okay. I understand, I'm getting divorced. And he goes, we'd like to get you married.
That's out of left field.
Here I start spinning in my chair. I said, wait a minute. He goes, you'll never see her. It'll just be a contractual marriage. And I said, well, can you guarantee me a dual passport and I can play as Italian? They said, no. I said, no, man, keep it. I'm going to live hopefully to 50 or 60 and think back, what the hell are you doing? Just to follow that basketball. So I stayed there, played in tournaments in March and April. Team in Switzerland saw me, and I signed a contract, and I spent the next 5 years there.
Wow.
That was that.
You certainly went through the ringer multiple times. One of your main qualities there is perseverance.
Yeah, stupidity, too, you could call it.
I wouldn't say that.
Like I said, self-deprecating. The lure of the basketball. It was the only way I could express myself. And I was no scholar or no statesman or any of that, and didn't care to be. That's what I wanted to do, play ball till I was 30.
You said that when you went to Switzerland and you played 5 seasons there, the team wanted you to score 50 points a night. I read in different articles that you scored in the mid-30s per game. How do you look back on that time in Switzerland where you were the main man and one of the, if not the best American scorer that was there?
The level of competition was never the same after the NBA. You go to the ABA, and then from there, you leave the States and pro basketball, and you go play ball in Italy, which isn't quite the level of the NBA or ABA, but it's very good ball. But I only got to practice there because of the contract and document issues. And then you go to Switzerland. Italy at that time, 1976, was a country of 55 million people, and Switzerland was a country of 6 million people. So logically, there's less to choose from in Switzerland. So the level wasn't as high as Italy. The players in Switzerland, most of my teammates worked all day and they came to practice. They had a job like being a mechanic or a watchmaker or whatever they did. They would come to practice in the evening, and weekends we would play games. Any team I've ever played on or coached, I evaluate the talent. As a player, I know what I could do with different facets of the game and who would need the ball and must I shoot. Every possession situational. I'm in Switzerland and I'm in the B League, and there's 12 teams in the B League, and there's 12 in the A, and there's one American in the B, and there's 2 Americans in the A. I go to this little town that really never had a lot of basketball success, and it's called Bellinzona in the canton of Ticino. So, hey, man, this is where I am. Italy don't want you. The Bullets don't want you. The Nets don't want you. Here you are. The talent wasn't great, especially where I came from, right? The NBA. I've seen the deal. So I go, okay, I'll try to fit in here. And you run up and down the court a couple of times when you're scrimmaging against another team, running on offense, and you turn around and the team's going the other way with the ball. And it happened once, it happened twice, it happened. I said, well, I'm going to have to bring the ball up court too. I had 3 or 4 years of not playing ball. So I went to Switzerland and somebody was going to pay for my frustration. I was pissed, broke, divorced. I'm not listening to anybody around here tell me how to play basketball. I'm going to show them some shit they ain't never seen before in this joint. And that's just what I did. The numbers I put up, Adam, they were embarrassing. I averaged 53 a game there. Boxing ones. They had guys draped over me. And I'm in my prime. And if I was in Italy, I'd be getting 15, 17 a game and adjusting to there. But if these kids can't bring the ball up the court without the other team taking it, I'm part of that team. So it's not going to happen. These coaches over there, they just read Johnny Wooden's book and thought they can implement it. But you got to know personnel. It's more than just X's and O's. It's a free-flowing game, creative. They had no idea. I just said, no, you don't want to get into it with me because you're the one that's going to get fired. The only coach I liked, he got fired after a win because he didn't like the president.
Is there anything that stands out from those seasons that you played there, Rich?
Other than Italy asking me to get married and never see the girl that I was married to, there were other crazy things in the world of European basketball. One that, as I think about it, I remember my 3rd year in Bellinzona, Switzerland. The guy that brought me there, he was the president of the team. We have about 3 games left. It's March. I'm walking into the gym about an hour, 15 minutes before the game. And all of a sudden, I saw a police car out in the lot. Here comes my president. He's handcuffed, and the police are walking him out. I didn't say anything. Man, it's kind of peculiar. You don't see this every day. I went into the locker room, and I sat there. Everybody said, hey, aren't you going to get changed? I said, who's paying me, man? That guy's gone, and you owe me a good amount of money. No, we promised. That promise ended up meaning I got half of what they owed me. It took me about 5 weeks to get it, but I got it. That was quite an experience.
It doesn't instill you with the greatest of confidence when you arrive to a game and see your president being escorted in handcuffs.
I don't know, man. It's all part of the journey that I went on chasing that basketball. As time went on, you learn how to live a good life. You're at the end, shoulder hurts, this hurts, a few things hurt. You start sipping champagne in the clubs. I know my career. The NBA was nondescript, and I sound cocky and arrogant here, but I'm just telling the truth. I mean, I had to get some major scoring game because I wanted to win, and I didn't want to go home, and I wanted to play till I was 30. So I had to bump some people that don't know shit about basketball. Talk about me all you want. Just make sure you pay me. okay? But you're going to win. You can just be a little bitch about things and say, oh, the American, he doesn't play for the team. What team? I throw you the goddamn ball, you can't catch it. You know? We were 22-2. Any other questions? All right. I stuck there for 5 years and it was over. And you know when it's over.
You just knew it was time. In May of 1983, you were inducted into the St. Peter's Athletic Hall of Fame. And then in 2000, you were inducted into the Roosevelt High School Alumni Hall of Fame. How did it feel for you to be bestowed those honors, Rich?
It was an honor. It was nice seeing all the people. They bestowed this honor to me, called me, and I went and I accepted it graciously. And that was that. It was earned from the record. It was fun. It was a job. It wasn't fun like giddy fun. People go, oh, you have fun playing basketball? No, I wanted to win.
I can say it was clearly a passion and drove you throughout your playing career for sure. Circa 2001, you returned to the NBA family as an education counsellor for the National Basketball Players Association. You were a mentor to players, helping their transition from NBA to life off the court. Now, you worked with them for more than 15 years. What are a few of the highlights, if you could quickly touch on that lengthy tenure that you had there, Rich?
18 years it was.
When I was 50, I got a call from the National Basketball Players Association, and there was an opening in their career development program, education program as well. I was interviewed, and they brought me in.
I had struggled between 32 years and 50 years of age, and I got this job at 50, and I wasn't going to let anybody grab it. And I did the best I could at it because I could relate to these players. I have some pretty dark stories once I was cut by the NBA and then the ABA. I've shared a whole lot with you, but there's no sense in going into the difficult time personally. Basketball was gone. I somehow survived it and went on to play 6 years of ball in Europe. A lot of players went through that. I made it a point that any player that was interested in preparing for his life after basketball or doing any of our programs or networking or going back to school, anything, I was going to get it done for them. And I wanted them to know that they had a father figure in me, someone they could trust. And if they were uncomfortable, I mean, I was uncomfortable as hell when I was playing ball. Yeah, I could ball. I was a pro. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know how to make a phone call. I didn't know how to public speak. I didn't know anything. So I just wanted to care for these guys and make sure they didn't have to go through what I did when the ball stopped bouncing. It was a nightmare. I didn't prepare. I just thought I could get by on this and that. And you're 34, you buy your first pair of sneakers in 20 years. You go, wow, reality's setting in. I got to pay for my sneakers now. I oversaw the broadcast program up at Syracuse at the Newhouse School. And I'd say 70 to 80 players went through it during my 10 years of overseeing the program. We had guys that were the 12th man on the team. We had Shaquille O'Neal, Hall of Famer, Vince Carter, Richard Jefferson, Andre Iguodala, Amari Stoudemire, Jason Terry, Ryan Hollins, just to name a few. They learned all about the broadcast program, and I just tell them, I said, come on up, I'll be there. Just get your ass on a plane. I'll get you at the airport. When you leave here 3 days from now, you're going to thank me. And every one of them thanked me. They had a demo tape, and we had a coaching program. We had a real estate program. And I was just happy to be part of it. A gratifying job.
Is it fair to say you were purpose-built for that role? Because you actually worked as a colour commentator for Marist College TV. You've obviously gone through the ups and downs of the professional career. So if anyone knows about making the difficult transitions, going through some tough times, Rich, that would be you.
Yeah, you can empathize. It's not easy. You're a star one day, like the NBA. When that was done, my first marriage was done. And it was all my fault. It wasn't because, the checks aren't coming in. It was my fault. When I mess up, I stand up, and I messed up. So many players, like Shaq, I worked with him hand in hand and he couldn't make it when the program was scheduled for. I said, Shaq, we can tailor this program. It's going to cost a bit more. And he said, well, yeah, let's tailor it. And I'll tell you a funny story. He said, Rich, why do you keep asking me if I'm going to show up? I said, Shaq, some players pay for the program and they don't show up. He said, well, I'm not one of them. What's it going to take you to stop asking me every time you see me? I said, Shaq, I got Syracuse involved. I got the union involved. I got everybody involved. Oh, Shaquille O'Neal's coming to learn about broadcasting, and everybody's getting ready. And you know the magnitude of being Shaquille O'Neal better than anybody. I said, okay, what's it going to take? Half of the bill of what it's going to cost him to do this program, to learn about broadcasting. He said, give me your phone. I get my phone. Beep, 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 beep. Next day, half. And that was the end of that. I treasured this job for 18 years. It got me back in the game. It got me back caring for players. I was older, and I remember what it was like when I was 20. I didn't know how to do much of anything, and there were no programs like this. And even if there were, I'd probably been too cocky to say, nah, man, I'm not doing any of that. Oh, yeah, you should do it because you're going to be lost no matter how much money you have. You can only play golf every day for so long.
One question which I love to ask my guests, do you have any particular significance to the jersey number that you wore throughout your career? You had 32 and 33 in high school. You wore 33 for Baltimore and the Capital Bullets and number 22 perhaps in the ABA. Not sure what you rocked over in Europe, but what was the significance of those numbers?
Well, high school and college, I was on teams, Roosevelt High School and St. Peter's College, where you couldn't have a number over 5 because the ref only had 5 fingers. But in the pros, it didn't matter. In high school, I was 32 at home and 33 on the road. I'm starting to sound like George Carlin now with my movements, right? And at St. Peter's, I was 22 at home and 23 on the road. I'll never understand that. And that's finally gone. And then Lockery had 22 on the Bullets, and he got traded a month after I was there, him and Freddie Carter for Archie. And I took 33. And the significance, I was thinking about that the other day, believe it or not, all these years later. Rich Rinaldi, RR, my initials, an alliteration, if you will, 3322.
The symmetry part of it.
We're all nitwits like that in the pros. Egomaniacs, stuck on yourself. Then reality hits you in the face when you're done playing.
We need to get Basketball Reference to correct the jersey number. At the moment, it shows New York Nets 1974, and it has number 22.
That's not true. I was number 33. I was there for a minute, and they got rid of me.
You're right near Julius Erving's locker.
Yeah, he was 32 with the Nets, and I was 33 for my tenure there.
After I left the Nets and tried out again, if I made the team, I would have said, give me number 93. I don't care as long as I have a uniform and I'm back in the league. Because once you get a taste of that league and 3 years later, you're gone, it can almost kill you. And in Switzerland, I was 11.
Oh, okay. There you go. I like that.
Thanks for letting me chop it up with you here because these are my stories and they're all true and I shared them.
That's a great way to wrap things up. It's been a pleasure to speak with you for this period of time, and thanks for making yourself available on your 75th birthday, no less.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you, Adam. See you, mate.
Thanks for listening. I welcome your interaction with the show. Tap the microphone icon on my website to send me a voicemail, suggest discussion topics or guests you'd like to hear conversations with. Worldwide, the show has 205 ratings on Apple Podcasts with an average of 4.9 stars, with 102 reviews across all providers. Thanks to your continued support. If you add a review, I'd love to read it out on a future episode. Your ratings and reviews are one of the best ways to support the podcast. If you enjoy the show, please tell your basketball-loving friends about it. Word-of-mouth recommendations are truly worth their weight in gold. Thanks to the sender of a text message with a phone number ending in 6369. They comment, "Happy to see you back recording podcasts. Your show is awesome. It's very kind of you to say, and I can promise you that's not from any member of my immediate family. If you wish to send a listener text, I only receive the last 4 digits of your phone number, the state and or country, depending on continent, the message is sent from. In this instance, I also see it originated from Houston. So thank you to Houston, Texas for representing. Stay up to date with my podcast and subscribe to my free NBA history newsletter. You'll receive exclusive details on upcoming episodes, future guests to appear on the show, and more. Sign up via my website or simply email me, inallairness@gmail.com. You can follow my show in various ways. Search In All Airness, 3 words, on your listening app of choice. The show is available on most platforms. Check the podcast archive for plenty more episodes with a great range of guests. Join me next time for another edition of the show.